like to, awesome. We started recording. Cool. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you so much, guys, for joining. And, we have those beautiful holidays coming, and I feel like this is the perfect time to kind of wrap up the year with the webinar. So I'm really, really happy to see everyone here. Victoria, Dan, Ian. My name is Anna McMichael. I work for as a director of partnership in VlogBox. And I would be happy to interview Fox today and ask a couple questions. The guy has amazing experience in, anything related with kids content and how to operate, and they will be able to give us tips on how to become stronger and how to increase your brand awareness in the internet and the digital space, and also referring to connected TV world as well. So I would like to kind of start with kind of like a regular statement of what is the most popular content right now in the kids vertical. From what we see, vloggers actually become really, really popular for the past couple of years. Even, of course, we have amazing cartoons from those big players and animation studios. We have noticed that the market shifted towards vlogger videos, also educational videos, and sometimes they kind of combine together. And of course, cartoons, they always there. But I would say vloggers is something that became one of the niche that we can even talk about right now. So I would like to see what you guys have to say about this. And I'll kick it to Ian first, if you can kind of give me a little bit of idea what you see, what you have noticed, what's been happening in the market, and then we can kind of go from there.
Okay, thank you. Well, on YouTube, we've certainly seen a lot of big vlogging channels. And the blogging channels are now trying to turn their content into educational videos as well. There are some huge channels that basically feature a child and family life, and that is what they do. They record their family life, and they're trying to move it on the educational side. Now, a lot of that is what YouTube are actually trying to get them to do as well, but we can talk about that later. And cartoons, well, on the kids' side in the nursery rhymes, I mean, you've got a huge channel like Coco Melon that produce animated nursery rhymes, and the traditional sort of Peppa Pig, Paw Patrol. They were traditionally on television, but now they've moved across to YouTube, and they are dominating in certain fashions. But I know there are a lot of other cartoon and animations all launching as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Victoria. What's your input on this?
I can comment from the side of producers and creators and distributors of animation, because our company is owned and representing 14 original IPs. And as for the popularity and availability of content, I could say that kids love to watch animation on any screen and at any time. I can tell that the wider the library, a platform, or a TV channel has to offer, the more chances are that families will find content that every member of the family would like. Also, for example, if it's interactive content, it's even more fun and I would say entertaining for kids. For example, in our studio, when we are producing any kind of content, cartoons, animated shows, we cannot ignore an educational component, which Ian also mentioned. Educational component of cartoons that in my opinion, and in our opinion, that's are the best form of explaining how world works and teach kids to be responsible. And during the, for example, during the pandemic period, a lot of shows, books were produced to help parents educate kids about the COVID-19 and lockdown periods and the overall situation around the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you so much, Victoria. Dan, what do you think as as kind of being an advisor for many companies and having a great experience in Kids Vertical? How can you explain what's happening right now and where do you think industry is really leaning towards to?
Well, it's every day I kind of blink my eyes when I see the stream of information that's coming in from the biggest studios to the smallest independent artists and indie studios and everyone in between. How much content is being produced across the board in every type of story and geared towards every age group from pre-K all the way to adults. It's unprecedented. I've been doing this for over 25 years now. And you can't even keep up with the volume, let alone more specialty type of content that kind of bridges over into edutainment. And, I'm just referring to just the straight animated stuff. And when you talk about, and reality is that it's been fueled by the growth of the streamers and by not just the growth of the streamers, but the growth of what traditionally had kind of been just the VOD sites like YouTube. Everybody wants content, but and the focus now is getting content out there and seeing how many different platforms it can be monetized on and or at least promoted on. And in the kids space, you have things like now the big push from Warner across Cartoon Network, for example, Cartoon Network and HBO Max with Cartoonito. You've got just it's kind of a joke now with how much content Netflix is coming out with. You've got Disney. You've got DreamWorks, for example, that's producing animated kids shows in every age group for a number of different platforms, including the NBC Universal platform. It's a very exciting time. I think it was able to take advantage of the pandemic from a production standpoint and really feeds into new workflows and pathways to produce content with artists distributed all over. But ultimately, the bottom line is that it's crazy right now, and I don't see that changing. And so it means a lot of opportunity, but a lot of competition.
Yeah, it's very challenging times, I think, right now with the competition for sure. So interesting enough, how all this started. For example, Victoria, being in DTR for a long time and leading a whole media international sales. I wanted to kind of kick this to you, and if you can give me an idea and just a little bit of explanation how your team look like. How did you start? How did you start working in the space? How did your team look like, and who were the elephants?
Digital Television Russia is a multi-screen media company focusing on kids entertainment regionally and globally. In just 2 years, DTR has become a leader of kids media market in Russia, and as I mentioned before, owns 14 original IPs that are distributed online and offline. DTR has a wide range of products and services, including but not limited to thematic TV channels. We have around 19 channels of different genres, including entertainment, educational, children's, drama, and documentary channels. We have a branded OTT platform, mobile apps, and games. We manage YouTube channels, VR. We do organize theatrical distribution, toy stores, festivals when it's possible, and production studio is also a part of our group, the Parvos Animation Studio. The company itself was established, if I'm not mistaken, 6 or 7 years ago as a joint venture of Russian television and radio company, radio broadcasting company, which we call it VGTRK, and Rostelecom, the key telecom operator in Russia, where VGTRK is one of the largest media conglomerates, which includes more than, if I'm not mistaken, 12 federal channels and more than 90 regional channels in Russia, as well as a wide list of radio stations. For example, channel Carousel International is also belongs to VGTRK. It is and dedicated to children and Earth. It is main children channel in Russia.
And interesting, you mentioned about you guys have rented channel on OTT and CTV, and I wanted to see, when did you start? What was the first platform did you start with?
The first, if I'm not mistaken, there were a certain number of YouTube channels we have started to manage and upload different content, because we have channels in Russian language, in English language. They are multi-branded channels where a lot of shows produced by our studio are available, and not only projects produced by our studio, but produced by other Russian and sometimes by foreign studios. And then we decided to create a branded OTT platform, which is called Mult, the same name as the pay TV channel in our network, where all cartoons are available. And we distribute the content there, which is available worldwide in Russian, English, and Spanish languages. So we develop this OTT platform, and also sometimes cooperate with international studios, and of course with other Russian studios.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Since we've been talking about YouTube, Ian, founder of Toy Trains for You, wanted to kick it to you. How was it working, you know, basically with YouTube as a platform? So specific knowledge that you need to make it work within that ecosystem. How did it work for you?
Well, listening to the big teams involved there, I mean, when we started 15 years ago, the team was exactly as you see on the screen now. I'd film in the morning, edit in the afternoon, and upload in the evening. And then the next day I'd start all over again. But obviously over the years, YouTube has grown very, very quickly. And there's been lots of changes along the way, particularly in the kids section. About 2 years ago, there was a major change when YouTube had to comply with COPPA.
Yeah, that's a big one.
It is, yeah, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. And suddenly YouTube effectively ring-fenced their kids' content. They have their app, the kids' app, which is still a bit of a mystery to most, but they are curated videos. They pick the videos that go on there, but the rest of the kids' content on the main platform is more or less ring-fenced, and a lot of the privileges that we used to have were taken away at the time to protect children. That was 2 years ago. It's been a very different place over those 2 years. But a few months ago, they issued some new best practices for kids and family content. Now, this is currently being rolled out now, and this could have some quite major changes as well. Effectively, all the kids' videos on YouTube will be classified as either high quality or low quality. And if the videos are classified as high quality, then they will help them in the algorithm, sort of promote them. If they're low quality, they will be suppressed. Now, this is all to drive up the quality of videos on the platform. I mean, they've introduced the high quality and bad quality, and it's all about being a good person, learning and inspiring, creativity, imagination, interaction with real world issues, diversity and inclusion, which is effectively why a lot of these vlogging channels are now changing their content to be more educational. It's to comply with what YouTube are actually looking for. Now, on the low quality, they don't want to see bad behaviour, or they don't want to see anything that's heavily commercial.
Yeah.
We're yet to see exactly what heavily commercial really means, but they're looking at sort of an overuse of branded boxes in videos, etc. This is being rolled out. We don't know exactly what effect it's going to have, but I think generally they're trying to improve the quality of the videos. And as a parent, you don't really want your children watching videos that encourage bad behaviour or how to cheat at exams, etc., etc. So a lot of it's common sense, but YouTube has also evolved a lot. I mean, we started 15 years ago, and at that time, 90% of our views were all via the computer screen. Now, it's only 70%. The majority of our views on YouTube are actually seen on the television screen, and which is actually, the last few years, it has really accelerated. I mean, YouTube are big. They've got their apps in all sorts of places, and from the figures we get through, we can see where our videos are being watched. It does make a lot of difference, because if your video is watched on, say, a mobile phone, the average view time for us is only 3 minutes. On a TV screen, it's 13 minutes. So look to see where your audience is, and then you've got to adjust the length of your video accordingly on the platform. YouTube is also an algorithmic machine. It suggests videos that people should watch. So you need to be on the side of the algorithm. So when your video goes on the system, it is monitoring the viewer's behaviour. If the viewer stays engaged with the video, the algorithm realises that, and ultimately will then start suggesting your video to other people.
Yeah.
So a tip really on the system is, to start with anyway, find a small sector that you're actually good at. If you get an engaged audience, the system will then start recommending you to a wider audience, and your views, etc., will start growing.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a snowball. Once you get there, it starts recommending you more and more and more, and then you just grow exponentially.
That's the idea, yes. I mean, you actually see videos growing and growing, and then suddenly this brick wall comes and they drop out completely. But hopefully at that time, another one is actually doing the same thing. But that's the idea. And particularly, the algorithm is looking for engaging content. If you can keep your viewer really engaged for, say, the first 30 seconds, then that really helps. So if you're making videos for YouTube, concentrate on the first 30 seconds. Keep the viewer in, and the algorithm will reward you for it.
That's really interesting, and I feel like that's something that only if you work with YouTube for a long time you can put this all together. It's a great insight. Thank you so much, Ian, for that. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I'm sure a lot of our viewers are going to find something very special about what you said. Thank you. Dan, wanted to kick it back to you and wanted to touch base because you have great experience as an advisor, organizer, participant of event and awards. So how those top animation studios are promoting their brand and content, how they make it so, how they use ability to participate in those events to their advantage.
Well,
what would you?
I think the first thing to do is to separate that kind of brand promotion into two segments. One is what a studio might do to promote their IP, their shows, etc., to consumers, to ultimately to the people that are watching it wherever they might watch it. And then there's a completely different side of things, is how do brand holders, how do studios that either have IP that they're trying to find, they're trying to sell, or IP that they want to get financed to create shows, that B2B side is completely different. Obviously, they're all extremely different, extremely important. The consumer side, I'm not going to focus on too much just because a lot of that promotion is handled by the distribution platform itself. Certainly with, streamers and broadcast. When you're talking about, YouTube and such, what can studios do to promote? A lot of them will just do other types of digital promotion, low cost, high volume digital promotion that's programmatically tied to people who are looking, either parents who are looking at, primarily parents, because of things like COPA, parents and stakeholders who make the decisions on what their kids will watch. On the business side, there are, this is probably the thing that I've spent the most amount of time with, both directly involved and working with studios on both sides. There's such a need for content right now, but there's a need for certain types of content. And that's been changing quite a bit. Ian, you kind of touched on this a bit, and I was going to mention that, is that you're seeing, let me take a step back, because there's so many formative threads that kind of came into what we're seeing now historically, and we don't have time to really discuss those. But when you're looking at the global markets for this type of content, and we're focusing on kids, animated content, episodic animated content for kids, there's big studio stuff that's pushed down through their own distribution, and then as more options, they monetize it wherever they can. Then there are regional IP holders and producers that traditionally would get assistance from governments and financiers, film funds, etc., because there's always a need for regional content based on regional stories for regional markets. As those markets have expanded, and as the digital world has expanded as well, suddenly big content libraries that may have been done for the Scandinavian countries, or maybe for Eastern Europe, suddenly they're in demand internationally, because animation does move across borders very easily, and a lot of animation has it's pantomime, so it's easy to move around, and suddenly there are markets now for content that you didn't see before. However, that a lot of content, especially content that we've seen coming from different countries in Asia, a lot of that has been a very difficult sell in the West, because the kids' content there is, they don't tell the stories with the same types of characters and the same storylines that are required, so to speak, in the West. They're a little bit more violent, they're a little more aggressive behavior. And so what we are seeing now with the expansion in animated content across all these previously more regional markets is there's a lot more storytelling There's a lot more diversity in the cast of characters. There's a lot more, the storytelling is a bit more gentle. It talks about teamwork. It talks about problem solving. It talks about getting along. The characters involved in the journeys of the stories are characters that are the type characters that kids would see all over. And so that is changing, and I think that's making greater opportunities for the storytellers. And the last part I wanted to mention in this is just that the big markets are more important than ever, even in the pandemic. And a lot of the markets, you know, the MIFA and AMAC, the MIP markets, Kidscreen, even going digital, they still provide the opportunities for business meetings. And from the standpoint of IP holders that are in the audience today, the opportunities for you are greater than ever, but the burden remains on you to approach these markets in a way that increase your opportunities for success. And that means getting the right help to get your materials together, understanding a bit about how to pitch, and most important, which is something that we see over and over, folks know they need to go to these shows, and it's not cheap to go to a show and have a good presence there. Mm-hmm. But they don't work the show beforehand. So they get into town and they have no one to meet with. So they'll walk around the floor and maybe take some meetings. The hard work of a show is done in the weeks leading up to the show when you're contacting and setting up meetings so you get to that show and it's boom, 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 boom. You're mm-hmm. increasing your opportunities to tell your story about the shows you either want to sell or are looking for co-production partners. And that hasn't changed. And if you spend some time focusing on that, that will definitely increase your opportunities for success in the work that you're trying to do.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. Yeah, I feel like even with the fact that, you know, you can go to the show and it seems like 3 days and it seems like a lot, you might not be able to meet the right people, or maybe the specific things that you're doing there is not very beneficial. But if you really get prepared for those type of events, you can take a lot of it out of it. And essentially everyone who is trying to make a big step or really reach big results on the partnership side has to be on those events and working before and after.
Just people, you might think that, oh, that studio wouldn't take a meeting with me. They're big and I'm small. Mm-hmm. You need to think just the opposite. That's why they're there. Everyone is looking. Everyone is, it's like turning up rocks just to see what's underneath it. They're all looking for the next gem. And mm-hmm. because of the way the business works, that gem could come from a creator literally anywhere in the world. It matters not where you are. It matters not whether it's just, Ian, like you said when you started, it was, you know, you were the CEO and as we say, the CEO and chief bottle washer. You know, it doesn't matter. The ideas are what are key. And there are people there who they can write the checks and they can help you get distribution across all of these channels, including, you know, OTT channels, if you have good ideas and can tell a good story. You just got to get in front of them, mm-hmm. and you can do it.
Yeah. Well, as an outcome, everyone who is in the space, and now we have a chance to actually go to those offline events. Everyone should do it. Everyone should go and try it out. Awesome. Thank you. I think another thing that I wanted to touch base on is working on the kids vertical. If we really target kids, but also the decision makers are at the end of the day parents. So when it comes to values that we are trying to cover, that you guys are trying to cover, what are those? What are you trying to highlight, and what is the approach here in terms of values to cover in the kids content? I would like to start with Ian and Victoria at that question, please. That would be really interesting to know how you guys treat that.
Well, going back to how we started, I mean, we actually stumbled into making videos. It wasn't something premeditated, and it sort of evolved. And in the days before Copper, when we could actually see comments on videos and we could see parents' reactions, it was really useful actually getting those reactions. Now, of course, they're all pretty blind and we can't see what they're thinking. But we basically try and put ourselves in as a kid. So if you were a kid, for us, we play with toys. We're not animated. We actually take toys that you can buy in the shop and make stories from them. Very much like a child would play with toys from their toy box. They tip them out on the floor and make stories from it. So every day we basically turn ourselves back to being a kid and think, how would a child make this story? We have some principles. We don't like to see a toy, say, knocked over as part of a story. We always have to see it back on its feet before the end of the video. And we always make sure that cheats never prosper. You know, there was always a little bit of kid villainry in it, but at the end of the day, it doesn't work out. And they're the basic values. And we don't deliberately go to make the content for parents, but I think if you can make engaging content that the kid actually sits watching, you're pleasing the parent at the same time. And I mean, YouTube has had its critics over the past where they watch a good video and then it leads on to a video that is not so nice. Copper has tried to change all that, and it's made it easier for us to just try and make engaging stories. But if you can please the child, if they can stay engaged, then you're pleasing the parents.
Yep, I guess that's right. And Victoria, what do you think, like, what is your major audience? Children, what age, or parents?
Yes, I absolutely agree with Ian's point of view. In order to understand your audience, you have to look closely to meet their needs and be not just in line, but ahead of trends. There are the main challenges and key to the success for distributors and producers nowadays. The main idea is to create not just a standalone TV show, but a brand that will be part of the audience life on TV, online and offline. Then you can build a whole ecosystem of products and services around it. Kids have always been very imaginative, and they do not see much difference between online and offline. So the key to the success is to be everywhere, so they can watch your content, play your games, chat with teddy bear that you make. And for example, DTR has cartoons for multiple screens and platforms, offline events, toy stores, books, and etc. All built of our animation brands. Kids love good stories, and I think it's very important to make those stories come alive.
Yeah, all right. And when stories are in fact interesting and beautiful, it does, you know, as a parent, I really want to watch them with my child as well. So it's, and of course we all leaning towards educational in that sense, to be like, okay, well, I guess it's not just cartoon, it's also teach my child something. So it's very important. I agree with you, and it's really, really important to target both at this, in the sense, when it comes to kids shows. Well, the next point that I wanted to move is a marketing strategy. And whoever want to take this, maybe whoever want to start, but what would you advise in terms of marketing strategy with the promoting your brand?
I can speak as I did a little bit before. I can speak. I probably have more words of wisdom towards the B2B side than the broad consumer side. And I touched on it a little bit. I think that there is a tendency to not overthink, but overproduce and under-deliver with regards to marketing materials and what you actually have to show when you sit down with someone for a meeting. And if you, part of the strategy of making good use of any type of meeting with someone who is a development executive, a licensing, a buyer, a producer, someone who's needed to help you be successful. And I've sat in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pitch meetings, and there's a few common things that 15, 20 seconds in, you realize folks are not organized. They've misidentified what it is they really are supposed to sell. And ultimately you're selling yourself, and you're selling the idea that you would be a viable partner in some business entity, whether it's a transaction or it's collaboration in a co-production of some sort. So it's better to have a small amount of really nicely done materials than a whole bunch of stuff that you won't be able to go through, and that will just confuse people. So I always say sometimes less is more, and it's important to get a colleague, to get others to help you create these materials, to talk about your shows and your ideas. That's vitally important. You need to be able to, a development executive, someone you're going to meet with, has the attention span of a small child. And especially at a market, they're doing meeting after meeting after meeting, 15 minutes at a time. And so you get a minute, you get 30 seconds to a minute to get their initial attention. And if you think about the iterative cycle of how you present your ideas, almost like an onion, and you start, what's your idea in 30 seconds? If you can't capture my attention in 30 seconds, then I'm not going to pay attention. So my point being is that the best strategy for you is to get out there and to take meetings. You can fall flat on your face. The next meeting you'll do a little bit better, and just focus on what's going to sell you and sell your idea the simplest way, the most illustrative way, because it is a visual medium, and to show that even if you've got one little thread of a good idea, you show it in a way that they say, this person is someone that I potentially would want to be involved with, and that's your job. And you got to pair that with getting out there. The markets are a great way. You can go to a market, you can have 20, 30 meetings in span of 2 or 3 days. And then from the follow-ups from that, if you do that a couple times a year, you'll have a slew of opportunities to just keep working and have communication with.
Yeah. And also, like, Victoria, I know you guys have good case studies or, like use cases of marketing strategy and how to get your name out there. Would you share a little bit of an insight on that?
Yes, exactly. It was with pleasure. I would like to add that in case of influence on audience, you have to attract it as much as you can. With communication with audience, organization of any competitions, giveaways, activities, it pushes your brands within any regions and expand awareness. You can use, for example, creation of branded zones and placement of cartoon characters in areas where there are many children. For example, ice rinks or shopping centers or even the subway. For example, we had a case when we designed a whole carriage of the Moscow metro and place the characters of our cartoons inside of it. And of course, I think that there should be, for sure, educational elements. For example, studying traffic rules, or why kids should be very careful with fire, how to spend your time outside, and etc.
Okay, thank you. So in your example, it's a lot of offline activities as well, especially when it comes to kids. It seems like you guys organize a lot of events and being all over the, you're showing your brand all over the place. So that's been working out for you really well. Yeah, great. And Ian, what about you? Have you attended any award events? How did you get your brand out there?
I think we should attend some events. No, we haven't. YouTube, through this algorithm, the fact that if people watch you, it will recommend you to others. It's an inbuilt marketing system to get your brand made aware in all sorts of places. I think our big problem that we realised a few years ago was that we actually hadn't got an IP of our own. We were basically playing around with other people's. And if we actually came to produce or turn what we do into animation, etc., we haven't got our own characters, which was why we developed our own a few years ago. It's been a struggle. I mean, starting from scratch, even with a YouTube audience, it does take a time. We are getting somewhere now, but this is, tip to anyone that wants to start on YouTube or anything. Try and create something that is yours. Play around with your own IP, something that no one is going to challenge. The family vlogging channels, they have themselves. They can take pictures of themselves and sell those. If you're just playing around with other people's toys, etc., you have nothing yourself of value to market, which is why we needed to create our own. And having got our own, we produce our little characters of the funlings ourselves, which we put in the videos. And because we've produced it all, we can take pictures and we can use that IP to put on merchandise, etc.
Yeah.
We didn't do that to start with, and it was a valuable lesson to us. But we're getting somewhere now. But by the sounds of things, I think we actually need to go and visit some events and start talking to people.
But what about, let's say, some digital promotion and any other placements that you've been promoting and doing some marketing for your channel? Have you been, working with any aggregators or branded channels or any mobile apps or games, anything in that matter?
Over the years, we've done, yes, we have been out there. We even got into China at one point in time, and it was going quite well. And then suddenly the Chinese government just removed the channel, as they did a lot, and all that work was for nothing. But we have, it was a few years ago, really, just before Copper came in, we realised that we were actually part of YouTube and nowhere else. And we needed to get out and about. We partnered with you, which is very nice. We need to get on as many platforms as we can to get our name out there. When we launched a video before, we used to advertise it on all the other social media platforms, which was good to start with, but gradually the other social media platforms have introduced their own video libraries. And I don't think they're quite so keen to share posts advertising their competitors. So that's not so good, but we need to get out on the other platforms. We have been on one quite big platform, the aggregators. I think that's the way forward for YouTubers or smaller people like us. We haven't got a big name to produce our own apps and say, right, come and subscribe, come and sign up to us and have this app. Whereas if our videos can be placed along with other similar creators that might use the same thing, it creates a center for people to actually take that app. And one particular app we're with, it is growing very, very quickly. And it's grown so quickly, it's now taken all the big names on board as well. So the Peppa Pigs and all the big blogging channels, they're all sending their videos to this app now. So it's all changing, and we need to be in as many places as we can. But probably, as Dan said, you get out there and you talk to people and you get on the app, and then 6 months later you find that actually it's gone under. It couldn't actually survive. We were part of one subscription model, and it seemed to start off well, but they just couldn't get the subscribers. But I think unless you're out there trying and getting on these places, somebody is going to win. There are going to be other winners. And if you're not there, you're not going to be part of it at the start. But yeah. I think this is quite new due to a lot of YouTubers. You know, YouTubers being a place, this is the only place we're at. Now we need to get out and about.
Well, let's ask Dan. What does he have to say regarding, you know, that matter? What does he think about cross-promotional activities and such?
Ian, I'm always a fan. You got to mix it up. You got to get out there, because that's the hard part. For a lot of creators, they want to create. It's like artists. They want to do their art. They're not always good at promoting themselves because it's hard. And that's why if you do a decent job, you'll differentiate yourself, because that you'll go through doors that others won't. And in the little bit of time we have left, I just want to really quick, I want to mention one thing. And this is something that we see from the biggest studios to the smallest. Mm-hmm. You need to send out materials to the press. You need to have a constant push of press materials, press releases. And not only that, they need to be simple, and they need to be produced in a way that makes it easy for media outlets to give you coverage. You have to do their job for them. It's not because they're lazy, it's because they're overworked. And if they're looking at an inbox like I do, and my editors do every day, with 150 to 200 press releases, and you got to go through, which are the ones you're going to cover? The ones that don't have images, they're gone right away, because it means you have to go back and forth at least once or twice and set it aside. So it's something as simple as, you would not believe how many press releases get sent out and they don't even have the logo of the company. There's no visual, or the visuals are in a format that makes it difficult to publish in all the different formats. There's a big portrait, there's not a landscape version. So you've got to cut a visual, and you have to cut off 2/3 of the graphic to make it fit in a format. There are certain things. And the last thing I'll say about sending out press releases, it's very easy to put together a press list for yourself to send out and follow up with. Press releases need to be written as if you have to think it's not an opportunity for you to just gush about how great you are. You're writing something that hopefully in a very short amount of material, someone will say, this is interesting. I can edit this. And in 30 minutes, I've got a news item. There's an image and we're done. That's how the decisions get made. So anybody can have a show. They can have a new deal they did, anything with an interesting visual and just a very simple piece of news. You would be surprised how many people will pick that up, and then you're in the news. And even if they don't post, keep sending, keep finding ways, because that's a way to show the outlet you are a good, viable, credible IP holder, because you're taking the time to do that, because most people don't do that. So you're putting yourself in the same pool as far as their intake with Disney and DreamWorks and Sky TV and Netflix and everybody else. It's critical. I can't overstate how important that is. And if you think about it, there's lots of things in your day-to-day that is newsworthy. You don't have to write a novel. You just got to get something out there that makes it easy to pick up and publish.
Yes, it's got to be short and sweet, right?
Short and sweet.
Yeah.
with visuals.
Visuals. Yeah, totally. Makes sense. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. As a wrap up to this meeting, I kind of wanted to, because you guys obviously have a great experience and you've been in this space for a while. And I think if you can give us an idea of the case that you've been working on and a solution that you come up with, and then tips for the people who just enter in the space or struggling, to increase their brand awareness. Maybe you can start with Victoria and you can tell us something that you overcome, over the past of your career in the company, and give some tips to people who are doing the same thing right now.
Yes, I think that's the main important thing, or everything depends on overall goal you set or your team sets. It's very important to work with a team who is on the same page as you. If we are talking about business perspectives, I would say the main question you have to ask yourself before pitching to any buyer is why they should acquire your content. And the content you are creating should contain, I would say, characteristics that appeal to different audience. Colorful animation, in case we are talking about animation, colorful animation of high quality, storylines, music, educational elements, and of course, family focus.
Okay. And actually, I just saw the really good question from the audience, and I feel like, Victoria, I might ask you first since you're here. So what is the best way you can tell now, based on your experience, what is the best way to drive audience to your content using other marketing channels?
I think maybe regarding, I don't know, do you mean any specific events or activities or
any marketing activities? Really, it can be events or maybe anything online, anything digital that you use and it gives you really good results.
For example, I can give an example. Sorry. In our company, for example, we do organize events for kids. This event for children on International Children's Day, which is called Multimir. We gather the creators of various Russian cartoons, which children love, organize stands with different activities for children, for kids, and their parents, create photo zones where they can make photos in the interior of cartoon, or a photo together with their favorite characters. So in general, you can create any kind of activities where you can communicate with your audience, communicate with children, and how to say, respect their needs.
Okay, thank you. Dan, also for you, over the course of your experience, can you give us an example of something that you had issues with, and then maybe for one of your client or one of your partner that you come up with a solution, overcome, and based on that, you can give us the tips on how to approach the market and maybe a whole marketing strategy in that way.
I'll give you. I'll try. I got a couple things, one in each, both on the consumer and the business side, and I'll try to be brief. One of the things that I would suggest with regards to consumer type branding is for IP holders to try and find stakeholders, bloggers, other folks who their business is to talk about and promote, so to speak, shows and properties like yours. By finding and cultivating a group of not advisorial, but folks that can influence you can piggyback off of them from a viral standpoint. And if you can work with them to help promote them and doing some of these offline events or digital events, and by doing these things in partnership, you get to leverage off of their big viral push and suddenly get access to people that you wouldn't necessarily do that. On the business side, I will share. I can't name the names of the folks because it's in the middle right now. But it was a very typical co-production. It was a kids show. There was a European broadcaster that was going to guarantee. There was a regional. The studio that had the IP was based in Europe. They had 60% of the funding put up for the show by a European broadcaster that would carve out a small amount of European rights. They were looking for additional financing either from one partner that could either finance it with cash and the production services, basically the guts of the animation production. They wanted to work with one. They wanted to work with one company as opposed to cobbling together money from different regions to put this project together. It was a very typical co-production scenario. And what happened was they would get someone to commit, but because they were working with government-backed funds for regional distribution, they would come in and they would drop out because those funds would only be available for a 1-year period. And so they never could get everything aligned together to get a deal done and into production. And eventually, able to help them find an Asian production studio that had enough backing that they could provide through basically they would provide the production as the investment, plus a bit of additional money, and that was finally enough to be able to get them to get this deal together. And it's being closed right now, but this was something that went on for over 3 years. And it's like every time it seemed like it was going to happen, someone had to drop out. And so the moral of the story is it's a long distance, we all know it's a marathon. Sometimes it feels like a sprint, but it's just this perseverance to get, it's having a good enough property that people believe in it and just keep pushing and keep having meetings and keep working with people to bring parties together. And eventually a good property, a deal can get done.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you. Ian, and also the same question for you. What was the big challenge that you faced over the course of the past year, maybe or two? And then how did you resolve it? And give us some tips, please.
I think the big challenge for any YouTuber is to actually keep up with the rule changes that are going on within the community and just find out what your own competitors within YouTube are doing to attract an audience. It's an ongoing issue that you face every day to try and keep your views going. So I don't know if there's one situation that we've really overcome. I mean, the introduction of copper was quite a. We had to find a few ways around things because suddenly you weren't able to advertise any of your other videos on the end of a video. You didn't see comments coming in from customers. It was quite a change for anyone that had been on the platform for a long time. And you were trying to find ways of getting your videos recommended within the new rules. That's a constant battle, and you just have to go along with it. As regards any tips, I think if anyone's looking to start up making videos, YouTube is actually a very good place. You can start up with no budget at all. If you've got a phone or a camera, you can make something and you can upload it onto a platform which is available throughout the whole world. I mean, YouTube are a good partner, but it's very, very competitive. If you want to do something in the kids sector and you've got a child of your own, just see what they watch them watching, and you can learn from that. And if you can find a way of making some content that's actually fun for you to make and your child enjoys it as well, give it a go. But have one eye on the future, because we didn't. You can get background music from YouTube, which is all free in the YouTube library. But if you want to use that video that you've made to actually put onto other platforms, then you might have issues. So there are some small tips right at the start. Look at the music side. A license doesn't cost much to go over all platforms, even for a small YouTuber. That might be something you need to do right at the start. And look to see if you've actually got any IP yourself, anything you can call your own. If you make the mistake at the start like we did, you have to sort of backtrack somewhere along the line. But if there's something you can call your own and you can expand into, then YouTube is a very good place to start. And you might turn into these other people.
Thank you. Ian, it's that easy. Watch your kids when they watch and you figure out what to do next.
It sounds easy, doesn't it?
Yes, it's super simple. Awesome. Well, I think at this point we pretty much covered all questions. All topics that I wanted to talk about, and we have a couple of questions from the audience that I wanted to bring in. So the first one, since we kind of mentioned the CTV and CTV being a new environment, and a lot of YouTubers also moved towards CTV, the question that we have is it necessary to leave YouTube for CTV? And I can take that. I can kind of clarify a little bit. So definitely not, absolutely not, because we look at CTV as a new ecosystem. Is it something where you have to definitely explore, look into it, and find your pros and cons, find why it might be good for you, and why you have to just keep it as another channel where you can stream your content, basically. So it's amazing to be, if you have a chance to be there, if it's a new ecosystem and it have a huge potential, as we can see numbers growing, definitely there is no point to leave YouTube, but there is a point to expand and explore different ecosystem. That would be answer for me on this question. Another question that we have, I would like to pass it to Dan, because I think they would be a perfect person to answer that. What awards and events do we need to take part in right now? Yeah.
I'm sorry, go on. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, so the question is, what awards and events do I need to take part in? We've launched our kids channel on YouTube, but want to be better known.
I can speak to the kind of the animation space. From an award standpoint, you can try to get, there are things like the Annie Awards, and there are Annie Awards both for for example, ASIFA Hollywood, and there are different chapters of ASIFA worldwide. Some of them do annual awards. They all have their own submission processes. For every one of the awards, so to speak, has their own requirements with regards to how and when and what can be submitted. So you need to look at all of those, but there's nothing to keep you from submitting to any number of organizations, guilds, and such for their awards. With regards to events in the animation space, there are a handful of big ones that are markets, and I'm focusing just on markets. There are tons and tons and tons of animation festivals and conferences where you can go to see lots of content, see what other content producers are doing, take part in panels and presentations and such about the art and the craft. But from a business standpoint, we're talking about the MIFA in Annecy, which is in June every year. That's in Annecy, France. For the animation space, that has grown and grown and grown, and it is a very important market. There's bookends on either side in the spring and in the fall. There's the MIP events, and there's a whole bunch of MIP events: MIP TV, MIPCOM, MIPDoc. So those are also big. There's Kidscreen, which is in North America. I think it's in Miami now. There's the Asian Animation Summit. There's SPP, which is in July usually in South Korea, and that is a big Asian, primarily TV, some feature film, but and mostly kids, animation market where you will find financiers. You'll find a lot of IP if you're looking to license IP. You'll find lots of buyers and co-pro participants at an event like that. There's a licensing show. There's a number of them, but those are some of the big ones. And especially now that it's still virtual, you can attend it's not that costly to attend. You don't have to go to Cannes. You don't have to go to Annecy and spend $5,000. Just to get a room and fly and everything. So you can easily participate in all of these. And as an accredited participant, in the weeks leading up, you'll get access to their platform, and you will get access to all of the people attending, which means you can communicate with them and you can track them and you can pull that information down, and that becomes your hit list for who the buyers are and who you should be trying to communicate with during the whole year. A lot of those folks, they've been in the business for years. So an opportunity to get to meet them is something that will pay dividends for years to come.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, in fact, we have such a great possibility now to attend those events online. So you can do so much more. You don't even have to go anywhere. You just can attend 5 events a week if you want.
I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, in North America at the Television Animation Conference, TAC, at the Ottawa Festival each year. That's also a good, even though I'm based in LA, I'm thinking internationally. I wasn't even thinking for the moment of Canada, but TAC is an excellent event as well. Same thing. There's pitch meetings for several days, and it's a good one to participate, especially if you're looking for Canadian co-pro financing, distribution, IP, etc.
Thank you. Victoria, what about you guys? What's your target when it comes to events? What shows do you guys try to attend?
Usually we participate in the events Dan just mentioned. So every year we participate in Kidscreen. 2 last years we attended online version, which was available for everyone. But hopefully this year we will be attending offline events. We do participate in MIP markets, which are located in Cannes, in China, in Cancun, and other territories. we participate in ATF market. It's Asian Television Forum, where you can meet different clients from Southeast Asia, China, India, and even Australia, New Zealand, Pacific region, and etc. NSC, yes, we participated once, but as this event is more for creators and producers of content, not for distributors. As for distributors, I just mentioned that there are meat markets, Kidscreen, ATF, and others, but NSC definitely a good place to announce and to present your new content, and also find partners for co-production or even new members for your team.
Thank you, Victoria. It looks like we have another question, and I think it's going to be the last one, so then we can wrap up. So why is CTV a safe environment for kids? I can take that one as well. So it's interesting because CTV is such a broad term, right? Your content can be on CTV as a branded channel or as a part of aggregator. So first of all, number one that we have to remember, even YouTube or CTV, it's always COPPA. It has to be COPPA compliant. So it has to be safe for kids. There are certain topics that cannot be discussed, or there is certain content that can be or cannot be out there. So essentially it works with the same compliance policy and safety policy for kids as YouTube and any other children space. Another thing that I notice as well when it comes to connected TV or any branded channel that you watch, it's really nice when you can turn something to your child on CTV. It's in a big screen and you actually can monitor what they watch. So they can really jump like on the phone or anywhere else, kind of jump from one show to another show, and you really don't have much control on that. But on CTV, you can show certain show and kind of make sure that's what they watch and control what type of content they're consuming, I would say. And it has a really good advantage. And that's why I'm sure CTV is safe for kids. Hope that answered the question. I don't think we have any more questions. I think we're pretty much done. I would like to thank you guys so much for attending and sharing your thoughts and experience with us. Very, very much appreciated.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Very much appreciated. Thank you. And I wish you guys all happy holidays. Thank you for attending. If you have any questions after the webinar, please feel free to reach out. We'll be happy to answer. And yeah, thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And happy
Bye.
Christmas.
Happy holidays. Bye.